Stop. Just stop for a moment. Don't scroll. Because if this message reached you today, something may have already changed. Not tomorrow. Not next month. Right now. Out of millions of people watching different videos, your eyes stopped here. Why? What made you pause at this exact moment? Most people would call it chance. But what if it wasn't? What if, at this very second, something inside you recognized a signal your mind hasn't understood yet? Take one slow breath. And before you continue, look around for just a moment. Nothing may seem different. The same room. The same sounds. The same life. Yet something feels unusual, almost impossible to explain. That quiet feeling is exactly where this story begins. Because there are moments in life when reality doesn't suddenly explode into something new. It changes so quietly that most people never notice it, until everything around them begins to move in a completely different direction. What if you were standing inside one of those moments now? What if this isn't just another ordinary day, but the doorway between one version of your life and another? You may have noticed strange things recently. People disappearing from your life without warning. Old dreams suddenly returning. Unexpected opportunities showing up. Or maybe you felt completely lost, as if nothing around you makes sense anymore. Most people think those moments mean life is falling apart. But here's the truth. Sometimes life becomes confusing because your old reality can no longer hold the person you are becoming. And that changes everything. Imagine two radio stations playing at the same time. The music is always there, but you only hear the one your radio is tuned to. Your life works in a surprisingly similar way. Every thought, every decision, every emotion slowly tunes you toward a different experience of reality. Not all at once. One small choice after another. One quiet moment after another. Until one day, you suddenly realize you are living a life that once seemed impossible. But here's the question almost nobody asks. What happens during the moment when the signal begins changing? What does it actually feel like before your world starts looking different? This is where many people become afraid. Because the shift rarely begins with certainty. It often begins with confusion, with silence, with doors closing, with plans falling apart, with nights where you wonder if you've somehow lost your way. But maybe those closed doors were never punishments. Maybe they were exits. Maybe the life you've been trying so hard to hold together has already finished teaching you everything it could. The greatest shift never begins when the world changes. It begins when you stop belonging to the world you thought was yours. Read that again. Because those words may explain more about your life than you realize. If this message is speaking to something deep inside you, take a second to like this video, subscribe, and write one word in the comments. Ready? Not for me. For yourself. Sometimes one small decision becomes the first step into an entirely different future. Now stay with me, because what happens next is where this mystery becomes deeply personal. There is an old story about a traveler who unknowingly crossed into another version of his life without taking a single step. At first, it sounded impossible, but when the strange signs began appearing, even he could no longer deny what was happening. And once you hear what happened to him, you may never look at your own life the same way again. The traveler was known by only one name, Elias. No one remembered where he came from. No one knew why he always walked alone. But everyone who met him noticed the same strange thing. He often stopped in the middle of a path, smiled quietly, and whispered, "This place feels familiar, even though I've never been here." People laughed. They believed he simply had a good imagination. Elias never argued. Because deep inside, he couldn't explain it either. One evening, after another long journey, he reached an old stone bridge hidden between thick trees. The air felt strangely still. Even the wind seemed to be waiting. As he stepped onto the bridge, every sound around him disappeared. No birds. No flowing water. Only silence. For one brief moment, it felt as if time itself had stopped breathing. Then something impossible happened. A warm feeling moved through his body, not like electricity, more like recognition. He looked across the bridge and saw the same forest. Yet everything felt different. The colors looked brighter. The air felt lighter. Even his own heartbeat seemed calmer. Nothing had changed. But somehow, everything had changed. He continued walking, trying to convince himself it was only his imagination. Then he met an old woman gathering herbs beside the road. She smiled before he even spoke. "I've been expecting you." Elias froze. They had never met. "How do you know me?" he asked. She looked into his eyes and answered with complete confidence. "I don't know the man who arrived here. I know the man who finally crossed." Those words stayed with him long after she disappeared into the trees. Crossed what? He hadn't climbed a mountain. He hadn't sailed across an ocean. He had only walked over an ordinary bridge. Or had he? Now listen carefully. Many people spend their lives waiting for dramatic signs. A flash of light. A loud voice. A miracle they cannot ignore. But real shifts rarely arrive that way. Sometimes they arrive disguised as an ordinary day, an unexpected conversation, a decision you almost didn't make, or a feeling you cannot explain. This is why so many people miss the moment their life begins changing. They keep searching for proof, while reality quietly starts arranging itself around their new direction. Have you ever noticed that after making one honest decision, certain people slowly disappear? New opportunities appear from nowhere. Ideas come at strange hours. Places begin to feel different. It's almost as if life is responding to something inside you. Because perhaps it is. Imagine standing before two invisible doors. One leads back to everything you've always known. The other opens toward a future your current mind cannot fully imagine. The difficult part is this. You cannot walk through both. Every meaningful shift asks you to release something before revealing what comes next. That is why uncertainty feels so uncomfortable. Not because you are moving the wrong way, but because your old identity keeps looking back. Parallel lives don't begin when you find a new world. They begin the moment you stop choosing the old one. Let those words settle for a moment. Stay with it. Observe it. Because in the next part, Elias discovers the one place no map has ever shown. A place where every choice he never made was somehow still waiting for him. And when he steps inside, he comes face to face with a truth that will completely change the way you see your own life. The next morning, Elias followed a narrow trail the old woman had pointed toward before disappearing. It wasn't marked on any map. The path twisted through tall trees until the sunlight almost vanished beneath their branches. The deeper he walked, the quieter everything became. Even his own footsteps sounded distant. After what felt like hours, he reached an ancient stone doorway standing completely alone in the forest. There were no walls. No building. Just a single doorway covered with strange glowing symbols that seemed to move whenever he looked away. Beyond it, there was only white light. No landscape. No sky. Just endless light. His heart told him to turn back. Something stronger told him to keep walking. As he crossed the threshold, the forest disappeared. He found himself inside a massive circular hall filled with thousands of floating lights. Each one pulsed with its own rhythm. Some burned brightly. Others flickered as if they were slowly fading away. In the center stood an old librarian dressed in simple white robes. He didn't look surprised. He smiled as though Elias had arrived exactly when he was supposed to. "You've finally reached the Hall of Possibilities," the old man said softly. Elias looked around in disbelief. "What are these lights?" The librarian raised his hand. "Each one is a life shaped by a different choice." Elias felt a chill run through him. "Different choices?" The old man nodded. "The road you accepted. The road you rejected. The words you spoke. The words you swallowed. Every choice creates a direction." Elias stared at one glowing sphere drifting closer. As he touched it, a vision appeared. He saw himself living in a quiet village with a family he had never met. Children laughed as they ran toward him. Their faces felt painfully familiar. Then the vision vanished. Another light floated near. This time he saw himself leading explorers across frozen mountains. Another. He was painting beautiful landscapes. Another. He was sitting alone in a small room, afraid to take any risks, watching opportunities pass one after another. Every light revealed another version of himself. Some joyful. Some broken. Some fearless. Some filled with regret. He stepped back, overwhelmed. "Are these real?" he whispered. The librarian answered without hesitation. They are as real as the decisions that created them. Now think about your own life for a moment. How many times have you wondered, what if I had said yes? What if I had walked away sooner? What if I had believed in myself? Most people torture themselves with those questions. But here's what they never realize. Those questions are not meant to trap you. They are meant to wake you. Every sunrise still places another choice in your hands. And every choice quietly reshapes tomorrow. The future isn't waiting somewhere ahead of you. It's being built by the thoughts, actions, and courage you choose today. Then Elias noticed one light unlike all the others. It was brighter than the rest, almost impossible to look at. Yet it wasn't floating. It remained perfectly still. The librarian's expression suddenly changed. His smile disappeared. You must not touch that one. Elias looked at him. Why? The old man took a slow breath. Because that light doesn't show who you could have become. It shows the life that is already trying to reach you. Silence filled the hall. Elias felt his heartbeat growing louder. How could a future reach backward? What did that even mean? The librarian slowly stepped aside. The moment you touch it, nothing about your understanding of reality will ever be the same. Your future is not chasing you. It is patiently waiting for you to become the person who can recognize it. Take a deep breath. If this story is making you see your own life differently, leave a comment with one word. Shift. Because in the next part, Elias reaches for the brightest light, and what he sees inside it makes him question whether his life has ever been moving forward at all, or whether something has been guiding him since the very beginning. Elias stood perfectly still. His hand hovered only inches away from the brightest light. Every instinct told him to stop, yet something deep inside him felt strangely calm, almost as if this moment had already happened, somewhere beyond his memory. The librarian watched in silence. He didn't try to stop him again. He simply whispered, "Whatever you see, don't look away." Elias slowly reached forward. The instant his fingers touched the light, the entire hall disappeared. There was no sound, no ground beneath his feet, only endless space filled with countless streams of glowing energy moving in every direction. Each stream carried faces, places, choices, entire lifetimes flowing like rivers of light. Then one stream began moving toward him. As it came closer, he realized something impossible. He wasn't watching another version of himself. He was watching a future that hadn't happened yet. He saw himself standing on a high cliff at sunrise. His face looked peaceful, confident, stronger than he had ever imagined possible. Around him stood people whose lives had been changed because of one decision he was about to make. He heard children laughing. He saw strangers embracing one another. He watched broken families finding hope again. None of it made sense. "Who are these people?" Elias asked. A voice answered, but it wasn't the librarian's. It came from everywhere at once. "They are waiting for the choice you haven't made yet." Suddenly, the vision shifted. The bright future faded. Dark clouds covered the sky. He saw another path. This version of himself had ignored every quiet feeling inside him. He chose comfort over courage, fear over trust. He stayed where everything felt safe. Years passed before his eyes. Nothing terrible happened. But nothing truly beautiful happened either. His smile slowly disappeared. His dreams quietly faded. Life became smaller. Not because someone took it away, but because he never stepped toward it. Elias felt tears filling his eyes. The difference between the two futures wasn't luck. It wasn't talent. It wasn't perfect timing. It was one decision. One moment of courage. One choice to keep walking when turning back seemed easier. Now listen carefully. This may be the most important part of this entire story. Many people believe their future is already written. Others believe nothing has meaning at all. But perhaps the truth lives somewhere in between. Perhaps every day presents invisible crossroads. Tiny moments that seem unimportant. A phone call you almost answer. A conversation you almost avoid. A dream you almost give up on. A chance you almost ignore. Those small moments quietly become the biggest chapters of your life. Because destiny rarely arrives wearing a crown. It often arrives disguised as an ordinary choice. The voice spoke again. Reality does not punish hesitation. It simply grows in the direction of your repeated decisions. Those words echoed through the endless space. Elias finally understood why the old woman had smiled, why the bridge had felt different, why the Hall of Possibilities existed. None of those places had changed him. They had only revealed what was already happening inside him. The life that changes everything is usually one brave decision away, not one perfect moment away. Take one slow breath. Ask yourself, is there one decision you've been delaying because fear keeps speaking louder than your heart? Don't answer too quickly. Just notice what comes into your mind. Because in the final part, Elias discovers who has been sending him these signs from the very beginning. And the answer will make you question whether your own life has been guiding you toward this very moment all along. Elias opened his eyes. The endless rivers of light were gone. The Hall of Possibilities had returned. Yet nothing felt the same. He looked at the librarian, expecting another explanation. Instead, the old man quietly smiled. I cannot take you any farther. Elias frowned. But I still have questions. So does every person who arrives here, the librarian replied. The difference is that some leave searching for more answers, while others leave ready to live them. Before Elias could speak again, the old man stepped aside. Behind him stood a mirror unlike any Elias had ever seen. Its surface didn't reflect the room. It reflected stars. Entire galaxies slowly turning inside a circle of light. Look carefully, the librarian whispered. Elias moved closer. At first, he saw only himself. Then the reflection began to change. He watched every important moment of his life. The days he thought had ruined everything. The people who walked away. The opportunities he lost. The nights he believed he had failed. One by one, each painful memory connected to something unexpected that came later. The rejection that pushed him toward a better path. The goodbye that made room for someone genuine. The delay that protected him from making the wrong decision. The disappointment that quietly built the strength he would one day need. Nothing had been wasted. Not even the pain. Tears rolled down his face. All those years. He believed life had been working against him. But now he saw something completely different. Life had been preparing him. The mirror shimmered one final time. Then a figure appeared behind his reflection. It looked exactly like Elias. Only older. Calmer. Filled with quiet confidence. The future version of himself smiled. You've been looking for signs everywhere, he said softly. But every sign was leading you back to one place. Your own decision. Elias stared in silence. So you've been guiding me? The older Elias nodded. Not by changing your path, but by reminding you to trust the person you were becoming. In that instant, the bridge, the old woman, the glowing doorway, the Hall of Possibilities, even the brightest light, all of it finally made sense. They were never magical shortcuts. They were symbols. Each one reflected a truth that had been growing inside him all along. He took one last look at the mirror. Then he turned around and walked toward the exit. The forest greeted him once again. The birds were singing. The wind moved gently through the trees. Everything looked exactly as it had before. Yet everything felt completely new. Because the world itself hadn't changed. The person walking through it had. Now let me leave you with something to carry after this video ends. Maybe you're waiting for a perfect sign before taking the next step. Maybe you've convinced yourself that the right moment hasn't arrived. But what if the sign you've been waiting for was this quiet realization that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing to move even while fear is still whispering. Every conversation you begin, every dream you protect, every kind choice you make, every time you refuse to give up, you are shaping the direction of your life, one decision at a time. The greatest shift doesn't happen in a single flash. It happens every time you become a little more honest, a little more hopeful, a little more willing to step forward. Your parallel life isn't waiting in another universe. It begins the moment your choices become stronger than your fears. If this story spoke to something deep inside you, take one final moment to like this video, subscribe, and write "I choose" in the comments. Not because those words have magical power, but because every lasting transformation begins with a decision spoken out loud. And who knows? Months from now, you may look back at this very moment and realize that nothing extraordinary happened on the outside. Yet this was the quiet day when your greatest shift truly began.